Welcome. Thank you for joining.
Yes. Hey, Susan.
So the camera's back there. So if you wave to the camera there. Hey, Amber.
Hi.
Welcome. So
Great.
it's 4:29 our time. It's bright and early your time. So thank you for being here. We'll wait another minute or two for people to come in.
Thank you all for holding physical space in Naples. How is it? What's the weather?
Gorgeous. It's beautiful. I almost want to show the camera where we have the amazing view that would make you very jealous.
I love it.
Right
nice, nice.
Yeah. So we set up a circle, but since the camera is there, what I'll do also, because we have a microphone, I'll pass the microphone around when people want to share their ideas, and Perfect. Maybe we'll try to turn a little bit towards the camera so they can see us when we're talking.
Okay. Sounds good.
But we'll do our best in the situation we have.
It'll work out fine.
Good morning, Amber. Thanks for being here. Do you want to just test your sound?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
It's good to see all of you. We hear you loud and clear.
All right.
So we're just waiting for a few more people, hopefully, to come in. There's one or two others who said they would be planning to join. But our goal for the conversation today is for it to be just that, a conversation. We'll tell you a little bit of the story of our project and how we see it as bigger than just a book project, but as part of a larger movement to increase access to resources, educational resources for students, for community members, and what that process will do also from the perspective of providing more of a global perspective in our work, and also to increase access for people to get their ideas shared more broadly outside of the traditional academic publishing system, which tends to be what they call in English a good old boys network, unfortunately. So it means that it's limited to people who know each other or are familiar with each other's work or speak a similar language and jargon. And by increasing use of open access materials and changing around the peer review process, we still encourage and use a peer review process, but we'll talk a little bit about the supportive goals and the structure of our peer review process to improve access from what we call the supply side, so being able to publish and share your work, as well as the demand side, so being able to access and read other people's work. Maybe we just go around and start with some introductions before we kind of launch into the story of our project. So I'm Judah VIOLA. I'm based in Chicago in the US. Fakila, come on in. It's a circle. We're all talking. And as you can see up on the screen, we've got Amber and Jerry here as well. The camera's right there. So when we talk, we'll turn it around and face them as well. So I'm one of the co-editors, but the leader of this particular project is up on the screen, Jerry Palmer, and I'll let her, can we switch to the Zoom? That's okay. There we go. There she is. So Jerry Palmer is the lead editor of this particular book project and the driving force behind it. So I'll maybe let her introduce herself next. And then we'll go around. I'll call on other folks on Zoom, and then we'll pass it around in the room as well. So Jerry, welcome.
Sure. Thank you, Judah. I'm so happy to really be here virtually and to have the other side of the room be there physically. So that's a great thing. I think we'll have a great session. I'd love to have been there. I've been to Italy, what was it, in 2017 to Venice and Padova. And so that was great, but I have not visited Naples. So again, thank you everyone who's there in person and for those who are on Zoom to join us this morning. And so, just I think Judah kind of introduced some of the thoughts that we had initially around starting the project. And as he shared, I'm Jerry Palmer. I am the assistant professor for Adler University, but also the co-founder of Community Wellness Institute, pretty much the impetus from a community perspective around why the book, we thought it was necessary, and how it came to fruition. And so, of course, just a little long story short, I was looking for a case studies book in community psychology practice, and there wasn't one solely dedicated to practice available. The books that were out that had case studies had scenarios, or they were in excerpts, so they weren't in fullness. And I did think that it would be a good idea to have them, in fullness. And the other side of it, of course, is always looking at equity. Right now, over 50% of the authors are people of color or identify as Black, Indigenous people of color. So we're really excited about that, because we know that traditionally academic publishing has not been equitable in that sense of having all voices heard. And so it was a way also to put that forward, as that is something that all of us work on in that social racial justice arena. And that was exciting as well. And so I think, so overall, we thought about putting it in a traditional publishing venue, or traditional publishing institution, whatever that might look like. And then we also are authors. I think Amber, I know Judah, Susan, myself are authors in Lenny Jason's, Dr. Jason's Introduction to Community Psychology textbook that's also in the OER space. And we liked it. We liked the dynamic feel of it, that it was accessible in that way, but also that it was free, or it is. Both of these books are free to students. And that's important to us also from a community psychology perspective, as we see the cost of college and universities, of course, is rising. And a lot of things, a college is prohibitive for any number of populations. So we always want to be on the side also of making things accessible and easier for students to access. So that's the other exciting part of both of those books. So having done the chapter in Dr. Jason's book, we looked at it and again thought the dynamic feel. We have links to websites, we have links to videos, all types of, I think even a podcast, etc. And so with that, we were able to bring students or the readers, whoever that might be, because it's also for practitioners as well, into the scenario, into the case study, where they can have a better feel for really what is going on, or how community psychologists practice. So I don't want to take up too much time with that. So I hope that some context around the work that we have done. And certainly we are also looking forward to additional chapters. I have someone that I work with, a colleague in clinical psychology, but she probably could be looked at as a community clinical psychologist. She has her license.
Wonderful. Thank you so much,
yeah,
Jerry. I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to introduce themselves.
Yes, thank you.
Amber, we'll ask you to introduce yourself.
Amber Kelly, Executive Director for the Society for Community Research and Action. Also the founder of Community Engagement Collective, a local nonprofit in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I reside.
I'm just trying to see if there's anyone else on Zoom. Looked like there were a few folks, but I can't tell in the view now.
They're not.
No. Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to pass the mic and ask folks to introduce themselves.
I'm Susan Wolfe. I'm a community psychology practitioner and community consultant in kind of almost the country of Texas, but it's a state of the US.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angela Ranucci. I am from Naples. I am a worker in a sanitary public company here in Naples, the most important one in the city. And I'm also a psychologist attending a post degree stage currently.
Modena Stinnett. I'm from the United States, connected to National Louis University in Chicago and many other spaces in Illinois.
Hi, I'm Laura from Florence. I work with Camillo as community psychology in LabCom and as a psychotherapist, person-centered approach. And I work most part of this with adolescents in school and in some community center in countryside.
So I'm Camillo Donati. I come from Florence University and the LabCom spin-off of the University of Florence. We work with action research mainly to support other partners in projects.
Fakila Guyton. I'm from National Louis University. First year PhD student in community psychology. I've been in early childhood field for a long time and starting to break into evaluations.
Thank you all. So we organized this event to be a discussion, and that's what we're hoping that it will be. We can tell you a little bit more of the story of our project and how we see it as an opportunity to generate more similar projects. So our project was, as Jerry mentioned, we had this idea of we need a new book that would share examples of community psychology in action that's conducted by practitioners that represents perspectives and experiences across the world and really values culture and values perspectives from a bottom up and considers is presented in a voice that is not alienating to people who are not in academia. So a voice that's telling a story, including lessons learned and what we can share with other people who are practitioners, but also what we can share with community members, what we can share with academics. So we invited a number of authors to contribute to tell their stories. So two of those authors that we invited to contribute are Amber and Susan. They're both practitioners who have been involved in various projects over the years. Susan has been a consultant in many, many communities. And so we wanted to hear one of her stories. She collaborated with several other community psychologists to put together a chapter. And I think maybe what I'll do is I'll show you a little bit. We'll do a little bit of show and tell to see the look and the feel of the book. And Susan can talk a little bit about her experience. And then we'll ask Amber to do the same. And then we would like to hear from you all about any questions you have, but also ideas for ways to either contribute yourself or to help us continue to grow and improve, to make it more accessible, to make it more useful, and so that it's a living and breathing thing. The nice thing about publishing online and open access is it's continually evolving. We can go ahead, we can make changes, we can add, we can use video and pictures and tell stories in many ways and just add more stories. So currently, our book has 11 case studies, but eventually it can have an unlimited number. And so I'll pass it to Susan and I'll pull up her, her chapter.
I have to start by acknowledging the lead author on our chapter was Dr. Kyra Brown. And she did, I think, shouldered a lot of the burden of making sure the chapter was especially good. I don't know how else to put that. She's an assistant professor at the University of Texas at Arlington. In 2019, I got a contract to do a needs assessment for HIV services for what our funding stream is called Ryan White funding from the federal government. And so I immediately invited Kyra. I said, you want to partner on this? Because she's one of my favorite people to work with. And so she also brought in some of her students, and we worked very closely with the gentleman. Well, let me see, her students were Claudia Jean-Pierre, Tamaya Bailey, and Jerisa Smith. But Justin Henry was at the health department. And that's kind of important given the context of this chapter. because we described our experience, we described what we did, the process we followed, how it was community inclusive. And then we were also able to talk about all of the lessons we learned and everything. But what was great about publishing here is we had to go through that rigorous peer review process, because we submitted our idea and our proposal and we got a lot of feedback. And then when we wrote, and we had to make adaptations based on that. Then when we wrote the chapter and submitted it, we also got feedback, just as you would for like an academic journal or something, about it needs more of this and everything else. So I feel like it was very rigorous in terms of making sure it met certain standards and that it through that peer review process. But the other nice part is we were able to, I guess on any publication, you can include community members or students and people that worked with you, but how can they show everybody what they did? Now our students that worked on this and Justin Henry, they can say, I did a publication and here's the chapter, and they can share it with everybody to be able to demonstrate the work they contributed to. So it has benefits if you're working in community and you can engage community as part of your writing and part of your project and conceptualization. You can also make sure that there's something they can use as they move forward in their careers and as they want to just, they can show their moms, for goodness sakes. Who doesn't love to show their mom, a publication? But the quality of it, when it came out, the quality is so beautiful. The pictures that were used, we turn in this basically black and white manuscript thing, and then we're looking at it and going, is that what we did? Because it looked beautiful as well. So it is really a product that everybody can be proud of in terms of content and how it looks. But the big thing is that accessibility as well. I guess that's my experience, and that's my excitement over it, is that being able to bring it to community and share it like that.
Great. And then we'll ask Amber to talk a little bit about her experience. I'll just scroll through just so you get a view of the use of images to tell the story. So different case studies have videos or links to outside resources as well. And they all have a similar look and feel, and they all include a section with a conclusion and lessons learned, a background. So there's some uniformity across them. So I will go to Amber.
Hi, everyone. I was really inspired to participate in this as a result of doing the previous textbook and just the experience I had with that, but also wanting to really highlight work in the area of inclusion, but specifically in the space of ability and accessibility, which was something that when you hear the term inclusion, a lot of times, a lot of the sort of discussions are centered around race, gender, orientation, but accessibility doesn't get as much attention. And so under the umbrella of Community Engagement Collective, did an initiative where what would it look like bringing together people around the concept of inclusion, but not necessarily promoting and advertising it as accessibility and ability, but hearing the lived experiences of those with varying ability levels. And so we did 3 different events to really highlight that, and having individuals in the space where they could learn things such as, hey, I'm a business owner and I don't really consider accessibility in terms of how people can get in my building, but even thinking of it as a bathroom space. If you think about the changing tables in bathrooms are usually centered around children, but what about those that are adults that need a heavier space and have to utilize that too? And so having those conversations and allowing people to learn from someone else from that lived experience help to foster community, help to have conversations that probably would not have happened otherwise. And it was intentional to make each of the events different, because wanted to highlight what happens from a lived experience of someone with a physical disability, a cognitive, And then the final, looking at it from a media standpoint, watching a movie that highlights ability and having conversations about it. Each event had an activity where attendees could engage and provide feedback. We did word clouds for the first two in terms of, what does inclusion look like for you? But then after our movie screening, we did a visual art where we were in small groups having the discussion, and we had a partnership with a local nonprofit, Starfire, that did this visual graphic for us in real time. And so this project was important because I know I could not find any case studies in this topic, an area. And so wanting to share a strategy that people could possibly use to bring people together around this topic. And I had the privilege of working with my co-author, Katie McCullough, who's a community psychologist that has previous experience in this topic area. And we've co-authored initiatives as well, similar to what Susan said. Hey, one of my favorite people to work with. So I had to really take a step back in this one because like Susan said, submitting this black and white, and then the way it came out was really different from what I could have imagined. I identify as a pracademic. I'm in practice as well as academia. And one of the things I've had my students do recently that are taking a community involvement course, which is Intro to Community Psych, I've had them go through the book and pick a case study that resonates with you and created a class activity and discussion around that because I wanted students to choose a topic that resonated. If you think back to academic careers, I know a lot of times had to read things that may not have resonated. And so it was really interesting trying this out this past term, and the feedback that I got from students from really the interest, the passion, how it was easy to read and navigate, and its visual appeal really lends to the fact that this project, as it continues to grow and have case studies, it's going to be able to reach multiple different audiences.
Thank you so Great. Thank you so much, Amber. Welcome. We have a few more people who've joined. You can come up to the circle. This is where we kind of open up the dialogue. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer, but really would love to hear from you all about ideas for making the work we do in the community more accessible, right? How do we share it? And do you see using a resource like this as an online open source? We call it a textbook, but it's just a resource. And just want to hear perspectives and ideas that you all have. Any challenges you would imagine, any concerns you'd have. It was an enjoyable process for us as editors. As Susan mentioned, we had a peer review process where we invited people to submit descriptions or abstracts of their story. And then those were reviewed and selected, and then we asked them to submit a full story, and we gave guidelines for headings of sections to include, and they submitted them, and we sent them to at least 3 reviewers for each case. The reviewers sent back feedback and recommendations, but the review process, once we accepted an abstract, we said, this will be published. That's what we told the reviewer, this will be published. What ideas do you have to make this more accessible, easier to understand, more useful for community psychologists and others? And it had an improvement focus. So how can you as a reviewer help the authors improve this? And so it was not a competitive process or a process of weeding people out. It was a process of building people up. So Jerry, you're welcome to add anything you like at this point, but I'm looking around the room and seeing if there's any questions or suggestions or ideas.
No, Judah, I think that's fine. Yeah, I'd love to hear what others are thinking and, you know, different ways that they may want to join in this project or in other thoughts that can move us all forward.
Hi, excuse my not so perfect English. I wanted to know more about the current contributions that already are in this review book, because I wanted to understand more about the fields of application of the contents, because I didn't understand if it is primarily for education purpose or not. And I understood that is all about community psychology, of course, and the transformation of environments. That's why I would propose an idea of my contribution, because Professor Judas saw yesterday my teacher's poster in which we explain a model of community transformation, honestly, because we implemented a protocol created by my former psychologist who tutors me in this path of my post-degree training. And we propose a model. I don't want to speak more because I want to leave other discussion time. But my question, I repeat, was what are the main fields that this review book is currently applying to?
So forgive me, I can't read the Italian version, but I will try to do it from memory. There's 3 sections to the book. And so the first one is community building. The second one is the global perspective, so projects that have international focus. We could use more in this section for sure. And the third, 4 sections. The third section is focused on program evaluation related projects. So assessing the impact and the value and ways to improve social programs or human service programs or training programs. And then the 4th section, yes, public health. We have in here, thank you. And whoops. And then there's some other additional things. We have an introduction, a preface, some information about how to get involved and give feedback so that people who read the book can complete a form and give suggestions or ideas or ask questions, and we can have some dialogue back and forth. Does that answer your question? Somewhat? Okay. Oh, sorry.
I was asking in which fields the contributors, the current contributors operate. I mean, if in education, in school, but I think I understood a bit, or not. I mean, for example, my contribution is probably in public health, would be probably in public health, because as the professor knows, I work and operate in a public company, sanitary company here in Naples, and we implemented this protocol in that reality. That's why I wanted to know where the contributors currently work in at the moment for the current contributors.
So yes, we have some that work in educational settings, some that work in public health, some that are consultants to community organizations, NGOs, nonprofit organizations, some that work in, they have their own organizations, like Amber runs a nonprofit NGO. And Jerry, maybe you can jump in if there's other backgrounds of the contributors that you can speak to.
Yeah, I think, Judy, yeah, you covered public health. Can we have that fourth section, community and public health evaluation, NGOs or nonprofits, if we're looking at, right, the United States. Amber, can you think of any other spaces? August's work is in education, and I would say, what do we call green spaces or the agricultural? Judith, there's another word for that. I'm thinking about August Hoffman's contribution.
Yeah, environmentalism, engaging
Yeah.
people in
Yeah.
environmental activities.
Yep. So yeah, I think, you know, kind of Judy Alble's work is nonprofit. I believe the Grandmother's Project. So yeah, I think, you know, that's a good coverage. And I think importantly too, Judah, we're open if it's not indicating now that we've got those areas that future contributors might work in, right? I think, you know, we're definitely open, and we are open, you know, to hear what that might be and to include additional sections.
Yes, so there's no limitations on who we can accept the papers or case studies from. And we look to expand the type of authors. We're probably heavy on academics or people with PhDs or people who work at universities, just because that's our initial network of who we know, but we're very open to go more broad.
Thank you very much. I have a brief question. I really appreciate the effort to have it in multiple languages, because it's really hard to make my mama read it in English. So that's really something that I appreciate. And I was, my question is about, do you plan to have every effort, every publication translated in every language, or each author's translate its own? So can I give all of this to my students in Italy to read it in Italian, all the works, or only from Italians? So are the Italian papers translated in Italian only, or every paper is translated in multiple languages? So wow, that is an amazing effort.
So right now we're relying on the technology of the web browsers and Google. So they will be available in every language, but not perfect translations, because we're not hiring individual translations and doing a back translation. But for anyone who wants to make changes or fix the problems in their language, we can always make those changes in the version that's listed on their language.
Yeah, I was saying that it's really important for us, because sometimes it's really hard for students to apply for reviews from abroad. The other question that I have is, when we were seeing the Amber part, our eyes were caught by the images. So I think that a big part of this publication is based on images. Tomorrow we have roundtables about creative methods, the use of images as a democratic tool. So I'm not sponsoring the roundtable, but just wanted to say that it's something really important in the educational approach that we are trying to promote with this book. So thank you very much for your effort.
Just a quick question. So with the case studies that would be submitted, how complete do they have to be? So if there is a project that you're in the middle of supporting a community with, and you know that there's some things along the way, like little small wins that say, you know, we're going in the right direction towards what the community wants, but like the whole project is not really completely finished. Is that something to wait on or something to submit? Oh, Jerry.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much. So that's a good question. I think, so I was thinking about Judah and Amber, I was thinking about Deidre's work around. So I think the way to really answer that is if you have lessons learned from the work that you've already done, and that's important, which it would be important to get out to the reader, to the audience, you know, that we're hoping to get the book in the hands of, I think would be worth submitting, even if the project isn't already completed, because as Judah shared earlier, we're able to modify the book at any point in time. We could always add the ending to it at additional point in time in the future. But for students and for practitioners, to help them if they're in similar projects or can use the work or use the lessons learned from your work already, I think is important because it's a living document. And that would help, I think, tremendously in moving forward additional projects, again, that might be similar to your own, and add the ending later. Judah, any thoughts in that direction?
Yes, I would say that the requirement is that you've had a chance to reflect on the process and be able to communicate some take-home messages, some learnings. So it's fine if you're in the middle of the project, but if you've had a chance to, you have some epiphanies or something that you would want to share. Rather, it's not just we did this, we did this, we did this. It's here was our story, and this is what we take from it. That's to share that others can learn from and apply to the work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think so. Because when I think about from the community psychology perspective, I think about prevention, and that's huge, you know, that's significant in the work that we do. So if it's something that has happened or occurred that can lend along the prevention side, that would be important to get out right away.
Okay, I asked to Camillo to help me in translation. Sorry if sometimes we speak. And I would like to ask if I well understand the approach is much more experiential, a narrative of experience in some project in different field of community psychology, much more than researcher evaluation approach. Is this okay? There is a format, some guidelines to apply in this.
So there's some guidelines for people who want to submit once you have expressed interest. So there's no form to fill out to ask to apply. It's just communicating with us and saying you're interested and telling us what the project is. Once that step is made, then we have a document that says start with a background, then have a narrative, then have conclusions and lessons learned, some references, and include some photos and guidelines for the writers. And then once you submit your first draft, we send it for review. Then you get a round of feedback, you make changes, submit again, and then we publish.
How widely is it distributed? Like, who's going to get to see this work?
Amber or Jerry, or do you want to speak to that? Maybe around the viewership, Amber or Jerry?
So one of the things to also note about the textbook, it is also linked to SCRAW's sister site, communitypsychology.com, which gets a lot of viewership internationally. And so that is one way that it's gotten out more. And we also hosted sessions for the authors that were recorded on SCRAW's YouTube page. And so that is another avenue for marketing to getting it out more so. And one of the things that was important to the authors is really thinking about, okay, diversity in marketing, getting this out just for that specific reason. And I know authors, some of them that are also in the academic space, incorporated into their curriculums as well. I also, in the community spaces that I occupy, I include a link for the textbook as well for those that want to learn not only more about community psychology, but also want to have some examples, some applied examples to the field.
Jerry, do you?
Yeah, I was looking for the press release, if I could find it, around some of the numbers that Rebus had given us around who had reviewed the book already. So I think I don't see it offhand, and I don't want to spend a lot of time looking for it. Go ahead, Judah.
Jerry, do you remember how many views we had the last time you checked?
Yeah, I was looking actually for the document that Rebus sent us to share with us how many had seen the book. I think we put it in the press release and the book announcement. I don't see it offhand.
I want to say roughly about 200,000 views and
I think
20,
so, yeah.
and 20,000 downloads.
Yeah, I know it was significant, right?
It's a lot more than any journal article I've ever written.
Yes, they did tell us that it was one of the top books that had been reviewed by, people looking for that type of work, et cetera, just on the Rebus site. And Rebus is the OER publisher, or the platform that we use. So we add that to that. And I think it also is in, what's the one, Judah, you uploaded the book to a number of OER sites, right?
There are some websites that specifically promote open education resource material. Some are for teachers to find resources. In the US, one is called Merlot for online teaching. And trying to think of the other main ones. There's some through the library consortium of universities that put together a list by topic, by subject area. And so we're in the psychology, public health, social science areas. So if people are looking for books to use for classes or things like that, they can find it. But I assume most people stumble on it in Google. They're doing searches for specific topics. And it's not just the book. They may not be finding the book. They may be finding a specific chapter. So a topic they're interested in, they Google it, they get linked to the chapter, and then they find the book that way.
So I do have the numbers. So the book was released in January of 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And so over the past 6 months, Rebus shared, there has been approximately 3,910 downloads and 185,000, almost 186,000 page views. And over the past year, there were approximately 6,356 downloads and 349,000, or almost 350,000.
Thanks, Jerry. We've got a question in the room or a comment.
No, it's just a comment because I think that this is a very interesting initiative. And I think, of course, that SCRA has reached a global audience. So probably the support of the European Association of Community Psychology maybe is not that needed.
but at the same time, we are trying to, let's say, also give space to young people in particular, young scholar and also young practitioner that have some difficulties maybe in approaching other venues. So I think that as far as we can do, I am Cinzia Albanese, I'm the president at the moment of the European Association. I think it would be good if we can support the initiative and maybe also promote the involvement of young people across Europe, because I think that this could really also provide new input to the book, also from people coming from different countries that maybe are also, I would say, more isolated at the moment, because maybe there are very few that still adopt this approach, but in some countries in Europe, there is no such a big network. I mean, in Italy here, we are quite lucky, but at the same time, in other countries, this is not so common. So I think that this could be really a nice opportunity for them, because and I think that they can contribute also to the quality of the book. And of course, in Europe, I should say that there is a very strong movement in order to have accessible resources, open educational resources, collaborative educational resources. So I think that there could be also other networks that can support and promote this initiative. And I think that this is also good for community psychology, because in a way, in some countries, in some fields, we are a small reality compared maybe to other disciplines, to other approaches, to other experiences. So I think it's really also important to let other people know that community practitioners have also a background in community psychology, and that this could support the development of our initiatives. This was just my comment.
So I'll give a very long answer to that, and that is yes, please. We would love your support, and this is an aspirational project. We put global lens in the title because that's what we wanted, but our own personal networks are limited, and we've thought maybe if we put it out there that other people would join in, and so we would love to have perspectives from all over the world. Right now, one of the authors was based in Lebanon and his project was there. Another author was working in Senegal. And I don't remember, Jerry, all the other locations, but I know we don't have anyone from Italy who's contributed yet. But we would love to have contributions from every country in the world if possible.
Yes, absolutely.
So I was just thinking, you know, from promotion perspective, adding to the content, you know, a lot of students do community psychology work all the time. They might not know, put a name to it or whatever, but they do lots of work in the community and have probably have the ability to contribute. And I also know that many students have not published or will not publish before they graduate. Is there a way to, you know, just from, you know, the contributors now that are educators, is there a way to add that into a program or a curriculum where it's a bigger piece of it? So I can say from my own experience, I knew about this. I knew when the announcement came out, but I didn't get consistent information because I didn't have Judah from my professor for every class after, right? So is there a way to make it consistent so that I would have loved to have made a contribution before I graduated, right? And I'm sure there's many other people that might like to do that. So is that something that can happen? And I don't necessarily need an answer, it's an idea.
I've got a mic now. Fly. Jerry, I know that you've used the book in the class that you teach to get feedback, and as readers, have you considered encouraging students to submit stories?
Yes, definitely. So I think we even talked about this as the editorial team prior to publishing the book, and afterwards too. And I'm thinking about Todd right now, Judah, when we talked about videos or putting videos in from students, et cetera, and making sure that we had some way to get students more connected in that. And so we're certainly open to hearing. I think that was what, I forget your name, that was sharing, but yeah, so importantly, yeah, we are looking forward to students joining the project and open to hearing how that might happen, because it sounds like you heard the announcement, and probably because at the time Judah was your professor, but as you moved on, it didn't get marketed, or the call to submit a story or submit a case study didn't get connect, or didn't follow through to other courses. I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate portrayal. And so I think it's a good challenge for us to do more to consistently send the message, not just tell students once when they're busy and overwhelmed and have other things in their lives going on, but to continually remind folks that this is an opportunity to get involved in. Are there other comments or questions? So along the lines of what Camilo was saying about the value of images, I can show just a few other examples of some of the images, if we can put the screen back on. So one of the chapters was about using green spaces and community gardens for different members of the immigrant community from Sudan. And so I think sometimes images of nature are very compelling. And so there's some, before and after pictures. There's images of the fruits of their labor, literally. And so it's nice. Most of these images are contributed by the authors themselves from the projects. But if there's, if authors need help finding images or adding images, that's something that the editorial team can be helpful with. But the more connected they are to the story and to the experience, the more authentic makes it a stronger case. And then this is another one. This is a cultural project of engaging African-American women in empowerment process on the south side of Chicago. And they include some images of concepts and ideas. So this isn't from a project, but then later they include images from their actual work. So the combination of images to tell the story of what actually happened, but also just to make a point and communicate that point is particularly helpful. And then some of the videos that people included were from their projects directly, but some also were introducing or showing videos that are on YouTube or from the news that help introduce or connect the project. So this is an example of a news story that's on YouTube from the Associated Press. And the project took place in Hawaii to help and support people with a housing first model. And so there happened to be a news story about homelessness in Hawaii. And so they linked to that story and embedded it, rather than sending people to a different website and then going down some rabbit hole, keeping them in the chapter so they can kind of seamlessly read on and continue. So I just wanted to highlight the point that you all made about using images. I think we're close to time, but want to make sure if anyone else has comments or questions. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask real quick and clarify, did you say that videos can be submitted as a case study? Or just like a part of it?
A part of it. We
okay.
need some narrative around it in
Yeah.
writing. Yeah. Susan or Amber or Jerry, do you have any closing comments that you wanted to make? We can switch back.
I was just going to say, I really like making more movement or the inclusion of more students in the project. And Amber had a great, we're kind of chatting here on Zoom, had a good, a couple of good suggestions that I'll let her bring up, but I really like that. And one of them she mentioned is maybe attending CP classes to promote not only the community psychology, but the project to students as well. So getting more hands-on in making that happen. So Amber, if you would just kind of share those couple of things I think are important for us to lead.
One of the things that we find is that students just might be intimidated about writing. And so really just making sure to communicate that this is a supportive process, that we want to encourage, that we want to help improve. And so I think more initiatives that really allow us to connect directly more with students so they can get it into their sort of forefront of, hey, you know, when I have a community project or it gets to a point where I have some learnings, this is a space that I can share that work and it will be a supportive environment to do so.
And I can add too, another way to get to students might be through faculty, but I would suggest instead of saying, hey, encourage your students to do this, perhaps have a presentation at the next biennial or somewhere where you actually show faculty how to support their students and how to encourage them and help them through the process in a way where the students write the chapter and author it. Not so the faculty author it and add the students, but so the students actually are the authors, but making sure they know how to encourage and support that process as well.
I also have a question for one of our audience members about how to expose or encourage people outside of academia to be aware and get involved. So for instance, you know, we try to be interdisciplinary. We try to engage communities, but there are other institutions that could very well contribute to this that we're not accessing. So for instance, human resources departments within hospital networks and systems, is there an access point, a way in which you think we might be able to get the word out to them, to invite them to participate? Can you pass the mic? I'm putting her on the spot. Any thoughts?
That's a really, a difficult question. To be honest, in my current workplace, no. The reasons are various and complex to explain, but I wouldn't honestly rely on their availability to take part of this wonderful project. I think the channel is through psychology department that is more likely into this kind of focus, honestly.
Yeah, we appreciate that, the honest response. That's, yeah.
So you saying that was like my leading thought to asking, like, who looks at this? Thinking about other disciplines. I'm thinking emergency preparedness, because there was a project that I worked on nationally where people were trying to figure out how do you have a better response, more of a cultural responsive response to like a COVID happening, because there were large swaths of people who were just missing information because the processes they had before didn't really include the quote unquote others. And so I think this could parlay into so many different sectors, but you're right. What access point? So I'll be thinking about it for the networks that I have. I know that with community systems development in Illinois, we have this digest where we pass information out, and it's kind of just a dialogue opportunity for different communities to talk back and forth, and to know that there's, you know, some other case studies out there or lessons learned. It may be something that we could share there, just another location I'm thinking, and that's just statewide. It's not like this big global focus, but it's an opportunity to get more eyes on it and people to think about it.
Great. Well, I want to respect everyone's time. Did you have a final comment you wanted to make,
did.
Susan?
As
We'll
far as-
we'll leave it with Susan.
Getting it with others. Also, if we share with the practice council, the other people who are doing practice and community-based work, and tell that, have something prepared that they can share, perhaps a link to something or whatever with people they're working with in the community. Because people like me, people like Amber, we work with a lot of organizations that would probably make really some great contributions. And we can, if we had a link that said, you know, you should write about this, look into this, maybe you could add a chapter to this book. And then, yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Okay. In Italy, we have the problem that practitioners that work all day in field don't have time or mental space to write. They write many reports, project, mail, stuff, and active work, and is not used to take time to reflect, to have a reflexive, real auto-evaluation work by writing a narrative of the project. And it's a very big problem that I met, come si dice curatore? For the Toscan psychological garden to write a book on a very applied psychology in school. We send to all the associated call, very simple call, and answer in 10. Because see, it's very difficult to apply something. And so maybe this kind of publication let more easy these things, but must be very easy, come si dice, light to apply.
Yes, we need to think about how we can reduce the barriers. So the time, the energy are different barriers. So we tried to make it a less intimidating process, a more kind and friendly and supportive process. And the length of the case studies can vary. So some people started by saying, we want to only write 2 pages or 3 pages. We said, okay. They started writing and they send 10 pages or 12 pages. And we try to help them to keep it shorter so it's engaging for the readers. But it's okay if it's 20 pages, it's okay if it's 5 pages, because online there's no difference in the cost. So there's it's a flexible model. And so hopefully that helps. I don't know if we could encourage some small grants to allow people time to write. That might be another way to reduce the barriers. But thank you all for coming, and we're happy to continue the conversation. Please take a look at the book and consider contributing. We would love to have your cases added. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Amber.
Yes,
have a good one.
Judah, for
Enjoy
spearheading. Take care.
Naples.
Yes, enjoy.
Wish we could be there.
Right, right. Thank you, Susan. Take care. Enjoy.
And Jer, we can Oh, we're still recording. I said we can
Okay,
connect
yeah.
offline.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
yes, because yes.